What's up, guys? Another beautiful day here on the farm, Gingerhill, sitting underneath this nice bamboo canopy. And so today, the direction that we're heading in is towards the cacao. And so we got a bit of a cacao orchard back here. We got some ice cream beans, those kind of spindly ones going up, planted throughout. There's some papaya, some really beautiful variety of strawberry papaya. And all of this is underneath, again, the bamboo and then this beautiful monkey pod tree. And so this is kind of a location that we would like our cacao in. We want them to have like a little bit more shade. And so getting into it, cacao, absolutely beautiful fruit. Really what it's most prized for are the nibs or the cocoa seeds. And also the pulp can be like juiced. We turn it into jellies. You can make alcohol from it, as you can do with most other things, which people like to get into sometimes. When we go through the process, we can also have some vinegar at the end, which is kind of delicious. But so as we go through, we're looking at a couple of different varieties, yeah. It's pretty much this like really beautiful bright yellow. And then we got this deep red with kind of like a flame stripe on it, almost, yeah. And then some that are kind of look a little bit both in the way. And so ultimately, what I'm going for is what's inside this beautiful pod. So I'm gonna see what we got in here. I don't know if you can see that. It almost looks like an alien corn. Right, like an alien corn on the cob or something. Ah, it's all crazy. Right. And then and so that the outside is the pulp, like that white kind of fluffy looking layer. Really delicious. And again, like if you're looking for a juice out of these guys, what I've heard is like the next day after you kind of like let everything drain, that this juice is just absolutely phenomenal. So I really love the flavor of that pulp. And then these seeds are ultimately what we're going to be turning into our nibs, right? Cacao nibs, which is ultimately, people make chocolate from it. It's very beneficial for our health, like high in antioxidants. And theobromine, I believe, is like the main component, which is kind of what gives you that like pep, yeah. And so the start is we got all these phenomenal hands in here harvesting. And then the next step is we'll be shelling all of these, like how I opened this one. We're putting them in containers, and then we're going to go into a fermentation process for like about a week. And then that fermentation process is killing the viability of the seeds. And then we're going to be setting them out into the sun, the beautiful Hawaiian sun. And yeah, and then they're gonna dry out there, and then we'll have our final product, which we already have some that's been processed, so I'll be able to show you that in just a bit. Getting into the harvesting process, so obviously we're going after the pods, but what you'll see right here is a very clean cut, yeah. So this is where the pod was coming from, the fruiting body, and so pretty much in any space where you're harvesting fruit, you're pruning trees and things, this is what you want to see, right? We don't want to cause any more damage to this tree than we have to, right? So this is a very nice exchange. I'm able to harvest this fruit. This tree, just like a little bit of a trim, and it's going to be easy for it to heal itself in that space. At times, I've seen people, if they're cruising through, they're trying to do this fast, they got to harvest like a lot of cacao. They'll come and they'll just pop it off like that, yeah. And which makes sense as far as like speed wise, but what can happen sometimes if we do things like that, it can peel some of the bark, and ultimately the tree's going to have a more difficult time healing itself. It could compromise that limb or what have you. So it's really great. We try and do it here always, is just practice this like conscious harvesting of these pods. Oh, it's beautiful little baby coming in there, flower. But so ultimately then, you know, if this thing is on the tree, I'm coming in with these nice shears, just making that nice clean cut. Yeah. And then too, while I'm around this area, you know, if I can see something like that, you know, where this is a dead branch already, right? So I'm gonna clean the tree up as I'm here harvesting. It's ultimately gonna promote the health of everything involved. And then now I got this piece, just make it into some more bioavailable bits. And yeah, now this tree's a little bit happier and we got some cacao, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, and then also too, like these low hanging, most of the time, like we talk about like raising the skirt of trees. And what I was mentioning earlier was like having a nice canopy. Sometimes taking things like this out is like gonna promote the growth maybe where we want it. So yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and that.
So this little guy too.
Yeah, yeah, and then ultimately we can clean that up and then feed the tree. Yeah. So like ideally, like I would love to like come back in, prune in order to ultimately promote that kind of like canopy. You know, that's going to be something that you're going to gain over like years of doing the pruning that you want to do. But for now, since we're here, we might as well, we'll do that with this one at least. Put everything back into the soil, give everything back to this tree. We got our harvest. Not the biggest harvest, but not the smallest, and that's okay. So we're going to take it up to our processing table. We're going to start that whole next piece of the puzzle. So we got a nice sunny space here, yeah. Little kind of like loungy deck area. And so this is where we do some of our coffee drying, right? This stuff has been here for a while, so it's all good to go. We're going to transfer it into some other larger bags, and then we're going to set it out to be roasted, right? So this stuff is pretty good to go. We got people on the farm that are part of the job in the morning and the afternoon is just to come out here, uncover this so these things get sun, cover them back up so they don't get wet. You know, sometimes it's difficult to keep up on that. So, you know, there's a couple times where some of these have gotten a little moist. So if you look over here, this is where we got our cacao, the nibs drying, yeah. But you can see with some of this, it does have like a little bit of mold kind of going on, right? So this got wet at some point. It hasn't gotten as much sun as we would like. So ideally, we're looking for a little bit more of a color, kind of like this it's light brown, yeah. Right, but so then what's good about this too is that, you know, there's still this shell on here. So when I'm pulling this shell off, then I'm ultimately getting to my nib, the cacao nib, right? Kind of beautiful.
Yep.
So this really does need more drying. You know, you can see it's kind of pliable. It's a little bit malleable, I guess. It should, ideally, it's going to be really nice and crunchy. But then I can take that all the way up to... I think it's delicious, really nice. I'm going to be all jacked up after that experience. Theobromine, man. But yeah, so ideally it's going to be a little bit more crunchy, nice and dry. The sun's going to cook it really nice. Yeah, beautiful. And then after that whole process, they keep for quite some time. Like, we'll go check out another batch that we've had for a year, roughly a year, something like that, and they're still good to go. So I'm going to be popping open these pods, right? So ideally, that one's kind of hard. We'd have like a rubber mallet, something like that. You can do it with anything, of course, just like a little bang, and then it pops open, and then bam, alien corn. put our funnel on. Just gonna, yeah. And then so at the tail end, I'll clean out this pulp in the middle. But for now, y'all could see that kind of like in the base. For now, I'm just gonna put it all in there. It's gonna ferment. It's gonna go through the whole process. We'll clean it up at the end. Yeah, and so then we're gonna do that with all of these pods that we got over here. Our phenomenal farm people help with all the shelling, right? So then this is the product that we have. Again, this is a bit of a makeshift way. From what I've gathered, this is kind of the flow that's worked. So this is how we're gonna do it. So just tied some mesh, some screen around the top, yeah? And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna invert this jar on top of this other ball jar, right? And so kind of what this is creating is like a bit of a seal around this area. So not as much, now the potential for like mold and things like that is gonna diminish greatly. And I like to just make sure it's reinforced, God forbid, like 8 geckos get into a battle royale on the top of this and then it topples over or something, then we're going to lose our whole product. Yeah. And so you can see, as I just inverted it, the juice is starting to drip down in there, right? And that, again, from what I've gathered, like tomorrow, if we came out and drank that, it would be like the tastiest, like juice you've ever had. And also, if you go about it in some other ways, the yield from this, it doesn't take very long to then become alcohol. So, yeah. So if there's nothing in the bottom of this, like 4 days from now, you'll know that yeah, no, just kidding. Yeah. But so then just to, again, make sure that this thing doesn't topple and also promote the seal that's being created, I'm gonna put a little bit of duct tape on there. So this, potentially not super necessary, but again, just trying to make sure that I don't have a future headache. And then we'll just have these sit out for like roughly a week. They're gonna go through their fermentation process. And then Frank got to see what that looked like at the tail end when it sat for a while. It was pretty gnarly. But those nibs looked like they actually came out really well. Yeah, so yeah, we'll just hope for another really solid process. And that, my friends, is Cacao. So thank you for joining us. If you like Cacao, or if you like us, or the people here, why don't you hit that like button, right, and subscribe or something like that. All right, shoot. Thanks, guys.